Welcome back, my awesome people. I am honored to be here today with CEO Adam Patti of Vistashares. Now, Vistashares has some amazing, exclusive, and unique ETFs, especially with the AI sector and Berkshire Hathaway. So stay tuned because you will get some amazing wisdom and some amazing information, not only about the AI sector or the ETF sector, but also what's going on with the AI tension between China and the United States. So, Adam, thank you for joining me here today. Tell us about yourself, tell about Vistashares, why you started it, and its history and its core mission.
Had the good fortune of meeting a guy named John McNeil. John was the president of Tesla early on. He was there for a while, and then he was the chief operating officer over at Lyft. He's on the board of General Motors. He's vice chairman of their autonomous vehicle division. He's a really accomplished guy, brilliant guy. Particularly in the technology space. So, he wanted to figure out a way to get into the ETF market and create better products around disruptive technology. So, for instance, he was looking for a way to invest in AI stocks. How do you get access to AI? He was looking around the industry, couldn't find a good solution because most of the products out there are, frankly, the Mag 7 is most of your exposure in those products. So he and his research team came up with a concept around the bill of materials, around AI and some other disruptive technologies to really dig into the supply chain to try to figure out, how do you get pure exposure into these technologies? So that was his concept. And of course, then I came on board and we broadened out to a couple of different families of ETFs that we'll be bringing out to really, offer investors different types of solutions or different types of markets.
And you bring up a very good point because when you do look at the market as a whole, the Mag 7 is pretty much that's kind of about it. So it's actually very commendable for to break through those barriers, look for other opportunities, especially now that we are in an AI kind of driven momentum. And so for Vistashares, what is the primary investment strategy that you use? I know it is primarily options based, but can you tell more about the strategy and who is the strategy for?
Right. So we have two products in the market today. One was launched in December, and one was launched only a couple of weeks ago. I'll talk first about the first product in December. That is ticker symbol AIS. And that is it's an equity-based product. It's designed to provide pure exposure to the AI supercycle. And what a supercycle is a long-term disruptive technology-driven trend that should change the way people live and work. So the way we've designed that product is to dig into the supply chain. So instead of just providing Mag 7 exposure and saying, yeah, here's an AI fund, which it's not, we wanted to dig into the supply chain to really understand, what are those picks and shovels that are going into building out all the infrastructure required to develop consumer-facing AI large language models. So you hear constantly about these hundreds of billions of dollars that are being invested by Microsoft and Amazon, and Trump came out with his $500 billion Stargate program. And this is unprecedented CapEx spending. And what is that going into? That is going to infrastructure. So how do you define infrastructure? For AI, it's data centers and semiconductors. So the trick there is then to say, okay, I get that. How do I get access to it? Well, then you analyze the supply chain. You dig in and say, okay, let's take data centers. Data centers are made up of cooling systems, racks, fiber optic cable, networking systems, generators, all the things that go into building a data center. So we will look at that. We'll do the analysis. We will identify how much of the cost of a data center goes into each one of those segments. Then we will identify the companies that serve those products to the data center build outs. We'll analyze their financials to determine how much of their revenue is actually coming from AI. We'll roll that into a portfolio, and that's a core portfolio. So we'll do that on the data center side and then on the semiconductor side. So you're left with 80 to 85 companies that, many of them people have never heard of. They're the picks and shovels. They're the boring company. There's some exciting company. We have NVIDIA in there, of course, but it's not. It's only in there because they're a huge player in servers and data centers. So that's why they're in there. So a lot of the companies are companies that people probably never heard of. but they're massive players, and it's where all the investment is going. So that's where the profits are being made. Profits are not being made on the consumer side in AI right now. To get to profits on AI on the consumer side, you need to build the infrastructure to create the compute to get those large language models to the point where they can create revenue for the Microsofts and the Apples of the world. So our product AIS it's a rules-based product for the core of our portfolio, but then we're an actively managed product. So we think it's important to be active because it's such a dynamic industry. Things are changing constantly. The markets are changing constantly. You need to be nimble. So while the core of our portfolio is rules-based, and an investor can go look at the rules and say, this is why these companies are in there. Then we have an investment committee made up of what we call the practitioners and the portfolio construction people. So on the practitioner side, we think it's important to have people that really know AI, really know the industry. So I mentioned John McNeil. He's on the investment committee. There's a gentleman named Sunny Madra, who's the president of a company called Grok. He's on our investment committee. He's one of the premier guys in AI. He's doing, building out data centers around the world. So those are our practitioners, and their job is to identify risks and opportunities based on their knowledge of the industry before hopefully other people can recognize them. Once they recognize a risk or an opportunity, a company should come out or a company should come in, then it kicks over to, what I call the portfolio construction people. That's myself and Professor Robert Whitelaw. And Professor Whitelaw was most recently the dean of the NYU Stern School of Business undergrad and the chairman of the finance department there. He's one of the top minds in portfolio construction. So our job is to oversee the portfolio and make sure that it's operating as it should be, and that we are keeping it fresh based on how the industry is and has been changing over time. So that's AIS. And I'll stop there because I know I threw a lot at you.
No problem. And you know what? You have some incredible heavy hitters on that team, and that just shows the credibility, and that shows that there is not only interest, but a background with every team member. And that is what a lot of firms don't really have. A lot of firms, they might have, someone who's been in one sector forever or one industry forever. But I mean, AI is so new that you actually have people in AI who've been in AI since the concept of it. So that's amazing. And then the second ETF?
So the second ETF is totally different. So this product is ticker symbol Omaha, OMAH. So without the A at the end, OMAH. And what this is very simple. This is a product where we're trying to create core equity exposure. So who's one of the best investors in the history of the world? It's Warren Buffett, right? So everybody loves Berkshire Hathaway, BRKB or BRKA. So,
and I love that the ticker symbol is OMAH, whereas Omaha, where Warren Buffett is from. So it's kind of a play on words. I love it.
Yeah, the Oracle of Omaha. You have to have a good ticker. That's great. So what we've done there is we have created an equity portfolio that's comprised of 20 stocks. The first one is Berkshire Hathaway. And the next 20 are the top 20 holdings of Berkshire Hathaway. So Citigroup and Bank of America and Apple and Visa and Verisign, all of Berkshire Hathaway's top 20 holdings. So it's the Berkshire Hathaway portfolio. Then what we do is we use an options overlay to create 15% target income per year paid out monthly. So 1.25% income paid out monthly as a return of capital. So it's invest like Buffett, but with income, because Berkshire Hathaway doesn't pay a dividend. So you can use it as a core part of your equity portfolio. Or if you own Berkshire Hathaway, carve off a little piece of that, get almost the same exact exposure, because we have the top 20 holdings. We don't go below that. So of course he has other companies in there as well, but it's nearly the identical exposure. But you're getting income to add to your Berkshire exposure.
And I mean, that is very unique because a lot of people, they want to follow not only Warren's advice, but Berkshire's plays, but they don't want to buy single stocks for every single thing like Coca-Cola or Visa. Instead, why not have a collection of a basket that has all of those plays, and plus a 15% yield for income? I mean, that's amazing. It outbeats the S&P. And so when we're looking at these two ETFs, especially AIS, especially as you know, AI is very, very volatile, especially right now. How do you balance the risk and reward? Is it actively managed? Do you go in every quarter? How does that work for Vistashares?
Yeah, so AIS is an actively managed ETF. So we're active to the rules-based process. So the rules-based process, as I mentioned earlier, the supply chain analysis that yields the core portfolio of 80 to 85 companies. But the investment committee's job is to review that every week or every day, really, to identify those risks and opportunities. Now, we're not going to be trading in and out of things. That is not what we do. We don't think that's a good use of time, particularly based on, daily changes in the market sentiment. AI is a long-term trend. So we view AIS as a long-term hold. I mean, you could certainly trade it if you want, but as a trading vehicle, you could probably find something a lot better. So it's a long-term hold. It should be part of your growth equity that you have in your portfolio. And we believe that, well, one thing what we've noticed since we've launched it, because of the nature of the companies we hold in the portfolio, it does have a little bit of less volatility than a lot of the other AI options out there, which are kind of Mag 7 plus software companies.
Yeah.
So, excuse me. So our volatility is a little bit less. I don't sell performance because you never want to know that when that changes, but it has performed exceedingly well versus its peer group. No surprise, again, given the types of companies we have in there, the infrastructure companies. So if you're looking for, and we actually trademarked this term, pure exposure. If you're looking for pure exposure into AI infrastructure, AIS is the only way to do that. Picks and shovels around the world, about 60% US, 40% global. It's a very unique product, and it's a great way to get exposure to this huge trend and to capture those CapEx dollars that are being spent. One thing I use sometimes is, every time somebody builds a data center, the cash register rings across our entire portfolio.
And that's a very good point, because I was looking at the holdings of AIS, and it really truly is a pure AI play. And not only AI, but of course you have some of the heavy hitters in the semiconductor industry as well, like the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing, TSM. And when we're looking at that, and of course, AI and chips are the trend these days and the future, of course. But how do you stay ahead of these industry trends, and especially with regulations? As you know, you have Microsoft coming out with chips. The US is pretty much dominating AI as well. But how do you get to the trends, get to the industries, and stay ahead of all these other competitors?
Oh, that's a great question. And that's where our investment committee comes in. With John and Sunny looking at the landscape out there, them understanding exactly the capabilities of many of these companies that maybe nobody's even heard of. Many of them are private at this point. So, you take a look at an NVIDIA. They're a bellwether, right? They have a huge moat. They have a huge installed base. They're not going anywhere. But there are companies out there today that are private companies that have better technology than NVIDIA. That's a fact. So, excuse me, the question is, are they going to be acquired by NVIDIA or somebody, or are they going to go public and start dominating on their own? So we need to stay up on those trends and really determine, when's the right time to get them in and out of the portfolio.
If without that, due diligence, without that team that is going to be not only just looking at what's right now, but what's in the future. And as you said, private companies, they are ahead of the game because they have no one that they really need to report to. They don't need to report to any government agencies. They don't need to report to any government regulations. And they're able to do whatever they want, make a million mistakes. There's no financial records that they need to report to. And so they are able to take that risk. And fingers crossed, hopefully, companies like NVIDIA, Microsoft can acquire them and make them public. And I'm sure VistaShares will be right there with them, acquiring them and putting them in their ETFs. So what do you think the future holds for ETFs in the future? Because, 15, 20, maybe even 10 years ago, the traditional form of investing was 20% mutual bonds, 30% treasuries, and, the very typical traditional way. But now ETFs, thematics, leverages, options are the new, not new, but I would say the more popular investment strategies, investment vehicles. So what does that mean for VistaShares' future when it comes to their ETFs?
Well, that's a great question. Also, the industry has certainly matured and has changed. Today's investor is a lot more sophisticated than investors from, a dozen years ago, even 20 years ago. The average investor, I'm saying, they are more comfortable with options, they're more comfortable with leverage. So the industry needs to change with them and create the right types of tools to have them create the types of portfolios they're looking for. So, it's a much more crowded space than, certainly, in 2006 when I started IndexIQ, but there's a ton of white space out there as well. So at the end of the day, I think for success, you need to create products that are meaningful for investors, not Me Too products, not products that claim to be one thing and actually another thing. Maybe that works short term, but if you want to be successful, you have to build quality products that investors want to use and they use for many years. And that's what we're focused on here at Vistashares. We're not going to have 100 products. We're going to bring out products that we think are important and they solve a problem for today's investors.
Which pretty much sums up the pure play, right? Whether it's AI, whether it's tech, whatever sector it is, it's always better to have a pure play. Even though Berkshire is more diversified, but I mean, it's a proven track record. Berkshire is killing it. So how do you see AI, artificial intelligence, impacting investment management portfolios and ETFs? So I know a lot of CEOs, they're using AI to assist them in managing portfolios, choosing companies. How does that play into Vistashares? I guess AI use?
That's a great question. Well, I mean, there are some ETFs out there that are currently using AI supposedly to, pick securities. I am not that knowledgeable about that because I just don't think the technology is there yet. I mean, I think what AI is very good at currently is sorting through a lot of data. So if a portfolio manager is looking for a specific security that has certain attributes, I think AI can be very helpful there. But I think AI's got a long way to go to become really valuable at the consumer level, and that all goes back to the infrastructure. So that's the hot space, right? The consumer facing applications. Who's got the best chatbot? Whose chatbot can do those things as fast as possible? But it's really rudimentary today, believe it. It's incredible technology, but it's rudimentary to what it will be, in 5 years from now. But the only way we get there is through more compute power. So the more compute, meaning more data centers, more powerful semiconductors, that is going to make the large language models more powerful and add more value to the end consumer, where the end consumer can actually do things that they need to do, and where the owners of those front end consumer applications can actually drive revenue. Because right now there's no one making money really on the front end, because there's just nothing. It's all testing at this point, really.
It's pretty much building the roads, the infrastructure, not really product based just yet.
Exactly. So all the profits are in the infrastructure. So, I always tell people, and this is why we brought the product out, is, invest in the infrastructure now. Keep your eye on the end consumer applications, because that's you can make them. That's where the money will be made 5 years from now, but not until we get to that level. So, within AIS, we have the ability to add a third supply chain. So we have data centers, semiconductors, then we can add consumer applications later. It's not ready, so we're not doing it. But AI will certainly have a big role in the advisor community. It's gonna, I had dinner last night talking to some advisors about that. They were asking me the same question. I mean, is it going to replace me? I don't think so. People, there's more self-directed investors today than ever before. So I think those type of investors will certainly not need perhaps an advisor, and AI will suffice. But I think there's enough investors out there that are going to want to speak to a human, even if that human is supported in large part by some large language model that is dictating their decisions and how they treat their clients.
So the human will not be replaced.
I don't think so.
And no, that's actually a very good point. So my viewers, you heard it here, right? AI is still on the ground level. And if you invest in AIS or invest in a pure play, it has, 5, 10, 15, 20 years of growth. It's like the internet, the .com era, right? Investing in those tech companies, most people were kind of scared of the internet. We're just using it for emails. But I mean, if you look at it now, we're using it pretty much for every single thing. And AI is going to touch upon every sector: healthcare, industrial, management, everything. So thank you for that, Adam. And so what do you think is the most overhyped aspect about AI? I know some people will think when AI hits healthcare, it's going to do all the surgeries. Autonomous cars, we don't need humans for that. Manufacturing. What do you think is the most overhyped aspect of AI at this moment?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I mean, I would have to say perhaps the perceived level of maturity of some of the technologies coming from other countries. So if you saw what happened with DeepSeek, right? The whole market just, cratered.
Yeah.
DeepSeek was announced. Now, of course, there's a lot of geopolitical tensions related to, between China and America. Trump came out with his $500 billion Stargate plan. I think it was a Thursday, and then all of a sudden Sunday, China comes out with, oh, well, we built a better model for $5 million. So, I think there is a global arms race going on with AI. So I think there's a lot of hyping going on around the world, but I'm skeptical about what's coming out of China. Clearly, they have incredible technology, incredible smart technologists. But this DeepSeek thing was, I think, overblown. I think most people have come to that conclusion. It was a training model, not an inference model. Perhaps they had access to NVIDIA chips through Singapore. I don't know. So I just think we have to be skeptical of what we hear and really look at the data. In terms of applications, I don't think AI is going to be doing any type of surgeries anytime soon.
And no, you're absolutely right, because it's just kind of like the race to space, right? Every country is saying what they're saying just to kind of get under the skin of the other country. And so I know with AIS, some of the holdings is global. So there are some from China, there are some from pretty much a lot of places in the world that are racing for that AI technology. Is it wise to invest in, not just for AIS, but even just a independent investor? Is it wise to invest in these Chinese companies, even though there is this tension that's going on between the US and China? Who do you think it will be the better bet?
Well, it's a global marketplace. So if you want exposure to the important companies that are actually building the infrastructure of AI, there are companies you need exposure to, like the Taiwan semiconductors. Those are companies that are really important. So, we have 14, I'm looking at my list, 14% in Taiwan, 7% in China. The exposure is not tremendous, but there's important companies there. So you need to own them if you're interested in owning the leaders in certain segments of the supply chain. So, look, it's a global marketplace. There's a lot of tension. There's always a lot of tension.
All the time.
I think we'll be fine.
Perfect. And so we know that China, as we just mentioned, a lot of technology is coming out of there. However, kind of skeptical whether or not it's actually true or as developed as they say. Do you think, and America obviously has a more open ecosystem, we're more transparent with what we're doing. How will this affect AI innovation and development? A couple of countries are more secretive of what they're doing. You have the United States and other countries that are very open with what they're doing. Is this beneficial or not really beneficial for the growth of AI?
Well, another great question. It's very difficult to discern how it's all going to play out because, in terms of regulations, there needs to be a global standard to protect privacy, to protect consumers. But there's so much competition between regions, right? So how is that ever going to occur if China is competing with the United States, the EU is competing? All these regions are competing on their own to try to dominate this new space, because whoever comes up as the winner in AI, whatever that is defined as, we don't know yet, they're going to have a tremendous advantage for efficiency and productivity across multiple, if not all industries for decades and decades to come. So I think the competition it's inevitable, but it would be nice if there was a global standard that, you could trust and that people actually adhere to make sure that people are using this AI technology in the right way.
And working together instead of everybody kind of doing their own thing. I think a partnership, not partnership, but maybe working together, sharing ideas, definitely is a lot better than hiding in your own little country and doing everything on your own.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's take a little turn here. What do you think the next major breakthrough in AI that will disrupt the financial world, whether it's investment, whether it's banking? Is there anything in AI that you think can disrupt the financial sector? Because I know especially with Ethereum, XRP, all these new blockchains are coming out, faster transactions, decentralization, that's kind of a shakeup. But when it comes to specifically AI, is there anything that you might think is going to really affect or change? It could be globally or it could be nationally, the financial sector.
I think the next big surprise or step up will be when one of these large language models becomes extremely smart. And, everyone talks about that. I think we're still quite a bit away from that. But, so if you look at how these large language models are developed, you've got the training segment, which is where you're providing a curated set of data to a model so the model can learn how to identify patterns in the data. The next step is inference, where you're taking that training model and then you introduce different data sets that are uncurated. And the model then needs to find those patterns or try to identify patterns in data that is, very different than what it learned on. And then you have deployment. So, and there's other steps in there, obviously. I'm simplifying it, but I think the next step is when one of these models during the inference portion of their training just takes a massive leap. And we haven't seen it yet. We're seeing incremental improvements, and some of it is quite stark. But at some point, somebody's going to take a massive leap, and it's going to disrupt, I think, not only the financial sector and what people invest in, but how people view, a lot of different industries around the world, and in a good way and a bad way. We just don't know. It needs to be contained and controlled, and but it's going to happen.
I do agree. It is incremental. It's kind of like a ladder, right? Step by step. But hey, who knows? Maybe in a year, somebody or some company makes that big jump and just changes the whole landscape. Now let's talk about, for example, Tesla and Elon Musk in the White House. He obviously has now the power to legislate, introduce things that previous administrations could possibly never have, since he is kind of the king of the autonomous car, SpaceX, and all these cool things that he's doing. What do you think, how do you think that will affect not only AI but even just your own AIS portfolio? I haven't checked, but do you have Tesla in the portfolio for AIS?
Nope. Only if you're not a pick and shovel for data centers or semiconductors, you're not in the portfolio.
Yeah, because Tesla's more of a product rather than the pick and shovel. So what do you think about his influence in the White House to open up and flood the gateways with opportunities and less red tape when it comes to AI, technology, and so on?
I think Musk has been pretty conservative on the risks inherent in AI, which I think is good. So whether he's being listened to in that front, I'm not sure. David Sachs is another brilliant guy who's involved with the administration, who I guess is I don't know his exact role, but I believe he's kind of in charge of, the regulatory thought process around around crypto and AI. So, we've got some smart people in there, which is encouraging. And I am encouraged that Musk is very conservative around, the risks inherent in AI. But, he's got a lot on his plate. So I don't know what kind of impact he's going to have. I mean, he's got all these companies, he's got Doge, he's fighting battles all over the place on X. So, I don't know how much impact he's going to have there, but hopefully there's some other people that are taking a very thoughtful approach to regulatory regime, and making sure that the United States can capitalize on the opportunities.
Definitely. And a lot of people are saying, well, the reason Tesla's kind of falling is because they're saying Elon Musk is distracted. He has, X, SpaceX, he has Tesla, he has the White House. So he is all over the place, but maybe one day he'll kind of consolidate what he really wants to focus on. So what I have to ask, what do you think about cryptocurrency in general? A few years ago, institutions were staying away from it. They're like, nope, we are not touching it. But now countries, and especially the White House, is creating these Bitcoin reserves, crypto reserves, and they're beginning to adopt it. What is your personal and professional thoughts about it? Do you think VisaShares might come out one day with a crypto ETF of some sort?
I mean, it's been pretty incredible, the change in sentiment within companies. Look at Jamie Dimon, within the government on the adoption of cryptocurrencies as something that's actually important. It was only a few years ago that people were saying it's snake oil. So I think it's very encouraging. Personally, I'm very bullish on the cryptocurrencies. I personally am not familiar with all of them, but the main ones, certainly Bitcoin and Ether, I am. They're very different. They're very different use cases, obviously. So I personally like them both. I couldn't wait which one better or not at this point. But in terms of coming out with our own products, I would never say never. I don't see a way for us at this point to create something that's special and unique, and useful, which is kind of the analysis we'll go through. There are some players out there that do really smart things. So I think they're at this point, they're the experts, and I'll leave it to the experts to create those new solutions.
Hey, well said, very well said. And you know what? I'm in the same boat. I don't really mess around with the other coins. I'm more of a Bitcoin and Ether as well, only because of the Bitcoin store of value and Ether because it has built a whole ecosystem around the smart contracts and all these developers and everything that they do. So if someone was starting to invest or beginning to invest, not only in AI but just in general, what advice would you give them?
Well, do your research first. You need to be educated, and that's something I am very strong on. Even what we do at VistaShares is we create content. Non-salesy, non-product related content. On AI, and now we're going to do some of the stuff on income because you need to educate yourself and know exactly what you're buying. Okay. Once you understand that, then you want to create, a well-diversified portfolio that hopefully will grow as you grow in your career, in your life. And then, you want to play, go out and play. Find some things that, get you excited and buy those stocks or those ETFs. But I think having a well-diversified portfolio as your core is critical because you need to save money. If you're a young person, you need to save money over your career to make sure you're comfortable when you get older, like me.
Exactly. And also if like during COVID, how many companies failed because they weren't willing to adapt to the new digital world? A lot of brick and mortar. Like, I mean, if you held the stock Macy's, you're kind of bankrupt at this point, right? So yes, you're absolutely correct. Due diligence, do your get some education in the company. Don't just follow the trend. As soon as your neighbor says invest in this, run away.
Yes. That's 100% right. Yeah, you want to stay away from that.
Exactly.
It's hard to steer people away from doing a little bit of playing, but as long as that playing is for a very small piece of what you're worth and what you're saving for your future.
Exactly. So what are your plans for the future of Visa Shares? Are you going to expand your suites? Where do you see the company in 3 to 5 years?
So yeah, so right now we have our Supercycle suite of products, which is now represented by AIS. We will bring out additional ones there, and we believe there's massive opportunity in electrification, biotech, and robotics. So those are kind of the ones that we're looking at. Then we have our income suite of products, which we talked about, Omaha. We have 4 additional products behind that in that income suite, which we think are unique. They're based on factor exposures, low volatility, momentum, quality, and value, all with the 15% overlay. We'll be bringing those out at some point. And we have a third family of products, which is a fully different use case than those two, which I can't talk about yet because we're going to file a registration
Oh,
statement.
definitely, definitely. No, that's good because my viewers are always trying to get the inside scoop on certain stocks, certain companies, and so on. Okay, so Adam, on this channel, outside of stocks, we kind of do just 3 questions out of the box thinking. Are you cool with that? We can ask those
Yeah.
questions.
Oh, I'm
Awesome.
scared now. All right.
Oh no, it's very fun. So if Visa Shares was a person, what kind of personality would it have?
Oh my God. That's well, happy and intelligent and happy and well, those are the first things that came to mind. Happy and intelligent.
You know what? I love those two because that's what investing should be. You should be happy with your returns and you should be intelligent with your returns. So, hey, that sums it up perfectly. Next question. What is the most random app that you have on your phone or your devices? Just some random app that you have. You probably use it once a month or every day or.
The most random app is when I first got my phone and my kids were little. This is probably not the best thing for kids, but it was a beer drinking app where you would press the button and a beer would fill and you could pull it back and it would empty. And I thought that was the coolest thing.
I actually have seen those.
Yeah, I mean it's from like 15 years ago, and I still have it on my phone. I haven't opened it, but it's still there.
Okay, perfect. Well, hopefully after this interview, you can have a drink.
Thanks.
Okay, last question. If you were not in finance or investments, what totally unrelated career would you have gone into?
Always wanted to be a veterinarian.
Nice.
I love animals, so
Do you have any pets currently?
I have 2 little dogs. I had a third. He's no longer with us, but now we have 2 little dogs, and I'm so excited they didn't bark. So you only had me coughing, but no dogs barking, which was good.
They were interested and wanted to hear what we were talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, Adam, awesome. So that was amazing. Thank you for the amazing information, the wisdom, and also the insight on Visa Shares. Before we conclude this interview, do you have any last mentions or significant events coming up? Anything coming up this year, very recently? The platform is yours.
No, well, I appreciate the opportunity. This was a lot of fun. Just keep track of what we're doing. Hopefully, your listeners will like what we're doing, and they'll check out our website at vistashares.com and take a look at our content. And we like to keep people up to date, so we're on LinkedIn, we're on X, and we're providing updates constantly, and hoping people will like what we're doing.
Perfect. And my viewers, I will have all of Vistashares information in the description box, so you can definitely check them out, especially AIS. I am highly interested in that because I love getting into things when it's on the ground level, especially when it comes to AI. I mean, that is basically the future. You had the .com, now you have AI coming up. So Adam, thank you for being here with me today. I know it is a busy time, and you've given us literally the best information, especially with AI. A lot of people don't know what's going on. They're confused, they're kind of skeptical, but you've kind of laid it out in the most clearest way possible. And my viewers, this is not the only time Adam will be on this channel. We will definitely have him on again. We will like to see the journey, see the suites that are coming up. So Adam, thank you for joining me today. And my viewers, please like and subscribe and check out Adam's information in the description box. And until the next time, stay ranting.